Greetings everyone, and welcome to the new year. Today we're doing a 5-minute review, and it's going to be a little bit of a blast from the past. This is the Accurate Miniatures A-36 Apache. Now this is the original boxing from 1994. I managed to find this on eBay, and I just really couldn't resist. This is going to be a bit of a nostalgic trip for me, and so I hope you'll bear with me here. But in 1/48 scale, this is the only option if you want to build A-36. So, opening up the box, we're greeted to this dark green plastic, and for 1994 tooling, this is actually really ahead of its time. Recessed panel lines and riveting. It's actually got quite a lot of detail despite the low parts count. You get separate tires and hubs, which was a big deal in the early 90s. And you get weight-on-wheel tires, which was, again, there's a lot of firsts here. Accurate Miniatures was really a good pioneer in these back in the early 90s for doing like very nice and high quality kits. Underneath the false bottom, you get the instructions, the decals, and the clear parts. One note about the clear parts, they are rather thick, but I think and for their thickness, their clarity is pretty nice. You do get a lot of options here that won't necessarily correspond to the A-36 or P-51A for that matter, but they share a lot of common parts with the later P-51B and C series that Accurate Miniatures did. Looking at the decal sheet, it's really simple. You get almost no stencil data, and on initial appearances, it looks pretty nice. Here is the original instruction manual. Again, this is 1994. We're almost 30 years off from this, and it's it's pretty simple, pretty basic. There's only a handful of steps here, and it kind of lays it all out for you. But I mean, it's simple, but it worked at the time. And finally, we have our decal placement guide here. So here's my thoughts on this kit. I remember building this kit back in the 90s and early 2000s, and I absolutely loved it. It's a fun kit. It does suffer from a lot of problems of the early 90s. For example, you can see that the wheel wells are incorrectly boxed in, but that would be similar on the Tamiya Mustang from about the same era. The intake scoop on the bottom is not all the way through. There's no detail on the radiator outlet area. So there's a lot of detail missing, but at the same time, there's actually a lot of detail in this kit. And I think that with just a little bit of work, maybe a little bit of aftermarket, this will actually build up into a really nice A-36. A lot of innovations for the early 90s that kind of seem standard today, but at the time were quite groundbreaking. I do have to cheat a little bit though. I've actually, by the time this video is up on YouTube, I'm actually in the process of building this kit. So my review is going to be slightly skewed, specifically around the decals. These are 30-year-old decals, and as you would expect, they just completely disintegrated when they touched water. And so I had to order some aftermarket decals. And so that's kind of disappointing. Some of the plastic is actually quite brittle. Again, I'm chalking that up to the fact that it's 30 years old, because when I was building this 30 years ago, I don't necessarily remember the plastic being brittle like that. So if I'm being fair to this, for my actual tallies here, I'm going to knock one off the plastic quality, just because mainly the clear parts. You don't get the option to have like open or close canopy for the early Mustangs, and the clear parts are rather thick, so cutting them apart is kind of daunting, and the scale thickness would just kind of not make it worth it, I think. They are relatively clear, but again, it's just they're overly thick. So that's kind of why I'm knocking down the plastic quality. Decal quality, like I mentioned, they're 30 years old. They're not good anymore. But even still, there's very few decals. There should be more stencil data, or I would like to see more stencil data, and things like that. So I'm knocking the decal quality down there. But overall presentation, I'm going to defer to my nostalgia here. And I love the way that Accurate Miniatures packaged their kits. You know, you have the false bottom that kind of has like the different profile views of the aircraft. And they did this with all their kits. and it's good presentation, good quality. The box art is attractive. You get like the painted model on the backside, and I really appreciated that. So here's my final tallies. Watch me on Instagram. I'm building it right now. Go check it out. And thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next video. Cheers.